Okay, thank you guys for being here. It is Monday, May 12th, 2025, 5 o'clock on the nose. We are at the Woodland Hills City Office, present, and then we have a few on Zoom. So I will call this meeting to order. I am the chairperson of the Community Development Committee, Kirsten Thompson. Let's do a quick roll call. I also have here in person at the city office, if you want to say your name.
Brandy Johns.
And then we're going to have Chloe. Her sound isn't working today, so if we have any votes or anything, we'll have to check the chat for that. So if I could have somebody who is over Zoom kind of watch that for us, that would be great. So Brandy Johns is here in person with me. Chloe is on Zoom and she'll be taking our notes. And then we have Lori Thomas also via Zoom.
Hello.
Perfect. Thank you. And then we have Daniel Jensen with Sunrise Engineering. He is on our call. I think Severin will be joining at some point, but he is running late, he said, with family responsibilities. And we also have Carrie Malkovich, who is our city council liaison, also on the call. Carrie, are you there?
I am. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Did I miss anybody? Nope. Okay. I know Nate Myers is not going to be here. If he could be put down as absent. I apologize.
Kirsten, usually on the minutes, you would put excused, not absent.
Okay. Excused. Thank you. Chloe, if you can note that. Next on the agenda, we have our approval of minutes from previous meetings. Our last meeting, we weren't able to vote on anything, so we didn't have a quorum. But this meeting, let's see here. Yeah, there's 4 of us voting members, so we have a quorum. But I have to apologize, the March 24 meeting minutes, I didn't completely finalize the adjournment notes. So we'll have to hold off on that one until the next one. But I did circulate the April 23 minutes a few weeks ago after we had that meeting when I sent out the land use map as well. So if we could get a vote on approving the April 23, 2025 minutes. Would anybody like to?
Did somebody say it?
Well, a motion in a sec.
I can motion that.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
I will second it.
Great.
So Brandy Johns motion to approve the April 23, 2025 minutes, and Kirsten seconded the motion. Okay, so we'll move on to our next agenda item of review, discuss, and approve the goals, objectives, and strategies for the draft section of the general plan. Daniel can better explain than I can kind of the plan moving forward and why we're starting here with goals first. And then I believe in the last email I sent out, as well as our last meeting, we went over future dates of our Community Development Committee meetings, which will still continue to hold on the last Monday of the month. But over the course of the next few months, we'll go over reviewing and approving sections of the general plan draft. This is not finalizing the general plan. This is just a draft. So Daniel, if you want to explain more about that, and if there's at any point we need to vote to approve anything, then we'll go from there.
Sure. So thanks, Kirsten. And I have to apologize. I had every intention of providing a draft of all of the, of the goals of the elements that we were going to look at before this meeting. And I was at our APA planning conference Wednesday, Thursday, Friday last week, and it got to today and I realized I hadn't sent it out. So I'm not sure the best way to go through this. I don't want to just read a bunch of text to you guys. I could email things right now so people have it up on their computer, or I'm just not sure. But what we have is
That's a good idea. And also, is it possible to screen share?
Yes, so I can definitely screen share. So what we have is I've been working on the general plan itself, and we wanted to make sure that the goals in the general plan, which is really the meat and potatoes of the general plan, that aligns with the vision of Woodland Hills, right? I'm doing my best to take best planning principles and I know about the community and the survey data to come up with what I think is an understanding of what's in the best interest of the community, but ultimately we rely on you guys, right? You're the eyes and ears and kind of the voice of the community. So we want to make sure there's good feedback there before we finalize our draft. It won't be like the final draft, but the draft that we send to our marketing team to create the nice looking general plan. We want to make sure that the text is as close as possible to a working draft. So basically on my end, I'm putting all the text together in a Word document, and then our marketing team takes that and puts it in InDesign and makes it look pretty, right? So let me share my screen.
Can you also email it to us, Daniel, so we can have a copy?
Yeah.
and look at it on screen.
Yeah, let me do that real quick. So what I'm going to send you is the goals for the first 3 elements. And just this afternoon, I started redoing the goals for the land use element because I did land use goals. I worked with Wayne, and then after the open house and some of the stuff I did was doing more research, and I was thinking of some other methods and some other strategies that could be included. So that one's in a little bit of disarray. And then I have the moderate income housing and the transportation. And I figured those 3 elements is probably enough for this first round. And then we go from there and do like another batch in our next meeting. So let me save this real quick, send that over.
While you're working on that, I just want to note, Chloe, if Severin Johnson is here. We're happy to have him. And he came in, I don't know, it was like 5:03. So if you want to mark him as in attendance, that would be great.
So I wonder what a good email is that has everyone on here. Maybe, oh, this one should work. All right, so you should have that in your email in any minute. And then I will share my screen. Um, okay. Has that come through?
Yes.
Okay. So like I said, this first one's in a little bit of disarray, the land use goals. But what do you think the best way is? Should I give you a minute maybe to read the first goal, these first 4 first 4 objectives, or should we just walk through them?
I think you can walk us through them if that's okay.
All right, let's do it. So, some of the biggest things that I noticed is maintaining a rural mountain community look and feel, right? Residents care a lot about maintaining that look and feel, maybe a little bit more than what the uses are themselves. So we wanted to make sure that the goals really reflect that. So the first one right here, we have maintain low density residential development as the foundation for community growth. So limit residential densities to those consistent with the current zoning and base zone designations. That's pretty axiomatic, but it's a starting point, right? Then outside of those situations, this is talking about like our R119 or, you know, whatever it may be. Utilizing PUDs, cluster developments, zoning overlays to open access along hillsides, scenic vistas, and trail corridors. And in the general plan language itself, it mentions that this is very much council driven, right? This is not by right. These are overlays. This is where the council deems appropriate, when the council deems appropriate, with the right type of housing product. So this is not opening up the whole community. This is very limited and legislative in design. So the third one here is prohibit high density and multifamily developments outside of specifically approved overlays. So again, keeping it very limited so residents know the general look and feel of the community is still single family detached homes, but we do want to give it some tools to the council to use their discretion. So that's that first one. And we go a lot more into what that means, but that's just kind of overarching high level look. So protect key view corridors, open space, and the natural mountain environment. So use zoning overlays to ensure preservation of scenic resources through open space and trail requirements. Require new development to incorporate native vegetation and hillside sensitive design, and encourage conservation easements or land dedication in environmentally sensitive areas. Then there's a fourth one here, and this one actually I think changed since I talked to Wayne, potentially. The Utah legislature in the bill that the LUDMA bill, so the Land Use Development Management Act bill that was passed in February or March of this year, it includes a change that I actually drafted and worked with Utah League of Cities and Towns to put in the bill and get it through. And what it does is it allows a transfer of development rights program to cross jurisdictional boundaries. Should the various jurisdictions sign off on it. And what this means is that you can have a sending site, which is a location where you want to preserve, I guess, open space or as farmland or hillside, you know, whatever it may be, and transfer the density that the owner has by zoning rights to another location where we'd like to see the higher density. So what you could do in this situation is, let's say that there's a hillside in Woodland Hills you want to protect, or a migratory corridor you want to protect, trails corridor you want to protect, and it's on otherwise developable land, but you don't want to see that protected, or you don't want to see that developed. And so what you could do is say, we're going to transfer the development rights that you have and bring it to another area where we'd like to see it. So before you, for example, approve an overlay in an area of town that you'd like to see density, you could require that developer to work with other property owners, or, you know, work with the city to purchase a development right from another location. So this is called a TDR, and it could also be done across jurisdictional boundaries. So like Provo City or Payson City could purchase development rights from somewhere further out in the county to preserve that area and bring it in. So anyway, I had put
And
this on.
Daniel, just a quick question on that though.
Yeah.
It's basically a trade for government-owned land, right? So if they have land in this PDR area, it's kind of a switch, right? To be able to use it on other properties. Is that correct?
Yeah, kind of. So there are two different avenues you can do this. You can either do a true TDR, so transfer of development rights, which is private property to private property, or you can do it as a PDR, which is a purchase of development rights, and that goes private property to government back to private property. And in that situation, Woodland Hills or Utah County, you know, whoever's administering the program, would purchase the development rights from the orchard or the farm or the hillside owner, And they would own that development rights, and then they would sell it to a developer at the time the developer is ready to come in with a proposal for a different area where we'd like to
Yeah,
see
that's what I
the
was
growth
trying to
happen.
remember that where the government was, and it's in that middle spot of the other. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So it can go either way. I had this on here initially, and Wayne was thinking Woodland Hills probably wouldn't do that, so let's just strike it. So I have it still on here, but stricken, and I just want to get your input. I didn't really do any write-up about it in the current general plan draft that I have, because Wayne said probably unlikely to move forward with something like that, so let's strike it. But I'm also happy if you guys think that this is a good idea to include, as it's not a mandate that Woodland Hills is doing it, but as a tool that the council could use. If you want it in the general plan, we can put this in the goals, and I'll do like a paragraph write-up about what it means and how it works. So what do you guys think?
I have a question real quick. I
Mhm.
know, I think Draper City and a few others that are bench. Trails.
Here, you keep cutting out.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Now I can.
Yes.
I know that some of the other communities that are along mountainsides have worked with the state and been able to have an MOU or something, extend their trails onto land as long as they take care of it. Our trail is somewhat like that. The top portion is on state land, and I know that the Parks and Trails Committee was looking to maybe expand that to other state land. Is that something we would put in here, or just let them kind of look at it?
I didn't understand enough of that. I got most of it. It cut out in a few key areas. Sorry, you said an
Thank you. Hold
MOU?
on. Let me join on another way. Just a second.
Okay.
Um, mm,
Okay,
okay.
I had to get on my phone. Anyways, what I was saying is that I know some other entities, cities that are on hillside development have done some sort of a partnership, a MOU or something with, especially when they're abutting state land, to expand their trail system onto that state land, and with the assumption that they will maintain the trails, etc. I think Draper City did that for sure, and I think Bountiful did it quite a lot in Bountiful, and they have a biking trail and all sorts of things. And is that something that we might consider putting here as a possibility?
So we have a section on recreation and trails, and that will go in there. So this would be like a public-private partnership with an MOU, essentially, for Woodland Hills maintenance for a trail that crosses private property. Is that the idea? And do it through an MOU?
Well, it's like for right now, we have our switchback trail that goes through state land,
Mhm.
and we're able to use it, and it just kind of ends. And they just have us maintain it.
Right.
And so I know there was discussion of maybe extending that trail to other parts of the mountain
Mhm.
on different directions. And we haven't really gotten to a place where there's a presentation or anything, but I was just wondering if it should be in something like this of protecting our corridors or open space, or if it should be in the trail section as possibilities on sharing those state land assets that abut our community, because there might be other things that we could do to expand that won't interfere with the private land that's in town that people think a trail should be going through.
Mhm. So that specific scenario is in the recreation and trails element, where we talk
Right.
about public-private partnerships and MOUs and that sort of thing. In the land use element, we're talking about, like, the goals in here are how we can use our land use tools to promote that open space. So
Okay.
the use of, like, the overlays and the PUDs, clustering or that sort of thing, where we can create open space.
Mhm.
And then
I just didn't know if the MOU would be considered part of the land use.
No,
So
not
it was
really.
just, that was the part.
Because we're just talking about a
Okay.
memorandum of understanding, right? Like
Uh-huh.
that.
Yep.
Yeah, so that'd
Yep.
just be more about the public-private partnership.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or public-public partnership,
Or
because it'd be two
public.
publics.
Yes, yeah, an interlocal agreement or, whatever it is. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that's a good question. TDR, do you think this would be, if we put it in the plan, is it something that's going to be beyond Woodland Hills where it won't get done? It doesn't make sense to throw in here, or do you think this is something council would be open to, or would it be an administrative headache, or what do we think?
I think I'm trying to understand what it's fully going to entail. So it's, from what I gather, what you shared, it sounds like another city could purchase land to protect it in our city. Like, how does it work?
So a good example of this is in Mapleton City. And what Mapleton does is they want to preserve their hillside, right? They want to keep open space up there. But the hillside is largely privately owned, and that would be expensive for the city of Mapleton to go and outright purchase the land. Also, the individuals who own the land, they don't necessarily want to sell it, but they have rights to build on it, right? According to the zoning ordinance, right? And so what Mapleton has done is they basically said, you can transfer your right to develop it to someone else who owns land in the core of Mapleton City, where we're okay if there's a little bit higher density. And it would effectively double the allowed density of somebody who owns in the core of the city. So if someone owned a parcel of ground in like downtown Mapleton City, which doesn't exist, but the core of the city, and let's say that zone is 1 acre lots, then they would be allowed to have 2 lots per acre if they purchased that same amount of land from someone who owned up on the hillside.
Protecting one plot of land and taking the right that they would have had to build on that and increase
stripping it.
other property to enable more density on that property. Almost, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's literally what it's called. It's a transfer of that development right. We're transferring it from one parcel to another. And it used to, the state used to say it had to be within the same city. And just this year, the state has said, we're not going to worry about jurisdictional boundaries. If we want to transfer it from like an orchard in unincorporated county, and we want the area for it to be transferred to be like downtown Provo by Front Runner, which is like the ideal location for a lot of density. As long as both parties agree to that transfer, we're cool with it. And so what that means is hills, you could either transfer something from your hillside to, the area like along 11200 South where you want to see some density, or if there's like a trail corridor that's somebody owns, maybe Bonneville Shoreline Trail or whatever, and it's going through Woodland Hills, and it's important for residents like in Salem, for example, they want to see it preserved too. Maybe Salem City says, we'll give some people in our downtown area, double the density in order to preserve that hillside. So it's just
So Daniel, once they transfer that,
Mhm.
then they echo there. Sorry. So once they transfer that original property then is basically in a conservation mode where no development will be, even though they continue to own that property.
Correct.
And we do have a couple of areas of our city higher on the hill that could be influenced by this. There's some people who at one time wanted to build some stuff quite a bit higher. Some people don't think it's possible because it's kind of way up there. Other people, if you have enough money, you can build anywhere.
Yeah.
So it might be something we want to keep in just for that very reason, because it's owned by the same people who own Summit Creek. And And it's kind of above us and above Three Bridges, right in that general area. And it might be worth it to be able to offer them something else. I don't know if they own enough property anywhere else to transfer it, but if they can go outside of our city boundaries and they're developing somewhere else, they might be interested. I don't know.
I
Okay.
have another question. So somebody uses this process, maintains a property, uses that to build higher density on another property, but then 5 years later, they want to sell the property that they conserved.
Mhm.
Does that carry over with the sale of that, or could it then be developed?
It runs with the land. So it acts as a conservation easement, and changes of title wouldn't impact it. So because it runs with the land, that'd be okay. But you do bring up a good point. So just because something like this is in the general plan is, something to explore, it doesn't mean it's in your code. So you would have to have something in your ordinance that would outline how it would work. And I've seen it done different ways in different communities. So some of them have it as a conservation easement with a timeline that's like 30 years or 50 years. I think and the ones that have it on a shorter timeline don't give quite as much density on that transfer. I would think you'd want something more like a permanent conservation easement or a 99-year, conservation easement, where you're literally basically saying you're giving up your development rights and someone else is getting your rights. We're doubling it elsewhere. I think that's the easiest way to do it, but different cities do it different ways. Spanish Fork has one in place, and Mapleton. Those are the only two cities I know in Utah County. And the reason for that is up until this year, it's been hard for a lot of counties it's been hard for a lot of cities to do a TDR program because it can't cross jurisdictional boundaries. And a lot of cities either they have like the density like Springville or whatever, but not the places to preserve, or they have the places to preserve and not the place to put it. So that's why it's been a little bit more limited in the past. So I think we're going to see more TDR movement in the future. More communities jump on board, more property owners know about it and want to do it, but it's still probably going to be a slow, transition to people knowing about TDRs, how they work, and wanting to participate. So I wouldn't get your hopes up that this is going to solve all your problems about hillside protection, but it is a tool in the toolkit, and I think it might be nice to have it in the general plan as something on the radar, right?
I believe there was a comment on the chat. If one of you could just check that's
Yeah, Chloe said that she liked the idea of including it.
I also like the idea. I think it's a
So-
good tool.
I think this is appropriate to take a vote
Mhm.
to leave it in the goals for the council to then have this as a tool or not. So I would like to motion to keep it in, and so to remove the strike through. Again, it's just an option for the council moving forward. If you are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
If you are opposed to having this in our goals to offer as an option for the council, say if you are opposed. Severin, are you a voting member?
You need to call for a vote.
Oh, I thought I was calling for a vote. How do I say it? I'm-
Yeah, a motion and then you have a second and then you have a vote.
Okay.
So someone makes
Oh,
the motion to accept the removal of the strike through. And then someone seconds it, then you ask for a discussion. If there's no discussion, then you ask for the vote to approve and then
Okay.
vote
Okay.
against.
I motion to keep this in as a goal for the city council. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say
Nay,
nay. Okay. What came in
I
on?
didn't hear the others.
Yeah.
And Chloe says A. She put it in
Ah.
the chat. I'm not allowed to vote, but my opinion is I think we should keep it as an option. Just because we have I think it's called North Slope is what the development name, and it's pretty high on the mountain, but they have some options for that property, and being able to develop that or to give them options to not develop it.
Okay, well, seeing that we have a quorum of 4 voting members and 3 of the 4 voted aye, the motion passes.
Was that Severin who mentioned he had a concern, who said nay?
6 voting members, and so a quorum is 4.
Yes, it was Severin who voted nay.
Severin, do you have
Did
a
Lori vote?
particular?
Lori
concern?
vote?
I think.
Yeah, I voted aye.
I'm sorry, there was a few people talking at the same time. Lori, did you comment?
I voted aye.
Okay.
All right.
Chloe also.
And
Like,
Chloe,
can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you now. So thank you, Lori,
Okay.
for putting your vote in. Okay. I believe we've moved on from that. We have Lori, Brandy, myself, and Chloe with an aye vote and Severin with a nay.
But did Severin have any concern that he wanted, like, any questions or something to address?
Severin, do you want to give any comment on it?
No.
Okay. So moving to the next little section here, ensure that all development supports the aesthetic values and visual quality of the city. Implementing design guidelines, and this is just for mixed-use commercial and multifamily developments. That's because state code doesn't allow it for traditional single-family home. You can do it in an overlay, that sort of thing, but not traditional single-family. Require architectural styles that reflect the city's upscale character here. Prioritize village style and resort style design over strip commercial and garage dominant design, and limit high density and traditional multifamily formats. Traditional multifamily that conflict with community design standards. And what I'm doing in the general plan itself is I'm putting pictures of different types of development with kind of like yes and no, right? Based on the type of feedback that I got. The feedback that I have tells me that residents in general are skeptical of multifamily housing, and that traditional apartments is a no. Townhomes that look like your Spanish Fork townhomes is a no. But residents are open to something more like a village commercial. And so I have some images in there. I want to actually just share a couple images and see if you think this is in line with how to interpret what residents said. Where are they? Okay, up here.
And Daniel, just as a reminder, this is only for overlays. This isn't for general housing.
Right.
And so a lot of people would look at that and say, no, 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 but they don't realize this isn't for everybody. Because we can't, as a regular single family dwelling, tell them architectural style or any of those other things that were on your list.
That's right. So all of the yellow and orange, these are all single family homes on large lots, medium sized to large lots. Very traditional. The area in the red, the base zone, is also single family residential. However, we're also saying that council has the opportunity, should they desire, to consider overlay requests from developers. They don't have to go that direction. But this is where we're signaling to developers, hey, if you have a really cool product that you think works in Woodland Hills and it's in this area, come talk to us. Doesn't mean we're going to approve it. Doesn't mean we're going to like it, but like, come talk to us, right? That's the idea here. And with images, so something like this, we didn't really talk about this in the open house, but this is called a villa flat or a manor house. In this type of development, you have a very large single family home, or sorry, a very large building that looks like a single family home, where there are multiple units in it. So this allows aging in place. It's not really affordable housing, but it helps people downsize while staying in the community, right? It's still going to be a nicer, higher end product. The house could fit within a single family home or a village commercial environment and look like a very, very nice, like executive estate. However, we're providing housing for 5 or 6, 4, maybe 3 or 4, depending on the size of it, different households. But this could be a place where grandma and grandpa decide, hey, we want to move into a 1,200 square foot condo, and we still want it to be really nice, and we want them to stay in the community, but not have to like take care of the large lot and the giant house, right? So not quite affordable housing, but definitely missing middle housing. We didn't really talk too much about this type of product in in the meeting. We did talk about this one. This is a village commercial. I'll make this a little bit bigger. Something like this, it's very walkable, very mountain oriented. It's what we see in a Midway or Park City, Heber, it seemed like residents were very favorable of this. So, if a developer feels like the rooftops come in, especially as Salem develops, and you have the development that could go in on the east side of Salem, Woodland Hills, if the market can support some boutique businesses with some residential condominiums up top, by all means, it seems like what I heard from the residents that were there, go for it, right? This wouldn't cover like that full red striped area on the land use map, but somewhere in there, maybe something like this, if a developer came with this type of product, it seems like there was support from the community. So that's why this would be in the general plan. But nothing is zoned specifically that it has to be this product, right? It's just, this could be in the overlay, like one of the types of products in the overlay. Where this type of development, I think what we heard from the community is not really what we want. So it doesn't really help address affordable housing. So when you think about like the moderate income housing element and the mandate from the state that there needs to be a reasonable path to have moderate income housing in the next 5 years, the way I know Woodland Hills is addressing that, ADUs, that's definitely very helpful. That's providing a good handful of affordable units. But I don't know, trying to balance what I hear from the community. I think the community is pretty loud that they don't want like apartments and even these kind of townhomes they don't really want to see. So that's how I'm interpreting it. I don't know, what's your feedback? Is this the right direction?
Council or committee?
I think he's right that people are more, at least from that night, it seemed like they were more interested in these village type of development. If they were going to go with a little higher density, they would go with the village type that provided the aesthetics plus the quality of life.
Mm-hmm. What about this type of housing designed to blend in?
I'm not sure. We really didn't talk about that, so I can't speak for all of the residents. I know in the lower area where there's not a lot of trees, we were maybe thinking of smaller lot sizes just to help accommodate that. Those might be able to go on some of the lots in town that are still larger, but I don't know. I mean, the committee can probably say to what they like.
Severin had a comment.
Well, basically my concern is that, that example just violates our current ordinances that we have fought long and hard to keep.
So you're saying the
Severin, are
current,
you talking about the big house, that big house that could be multifamily big house?
Number one, it's too high. Number two, it has 2 floors.
What was number 2? That I couldn't hear that one.
The height limit,
The height, yeah.
and it has too many floors. There are 3 floors on there.
Okay.
We only have 2 floors above ground, And the height limit is 35 feet. There's no way you're gonna get that house below 35 feet.
Yeah, I don't know that those type of specifics matter here. We could have the image, keep it at 35 feet or 2 floors or whatever, but what would you think about a building like that has multiple units inside of it?
Of current ordinances and not try to push something beyond that.
So if it fell within our ordinances of height and floor limit, would a multi-family housing with 2 to 4 dwelling units in a single building design work in our current ordinances? If it did
Well,
not,
not in the current ordinances.
Not in the current ordinance. It would require
No.
a new code.
But
But
And we have to remember what the general plan is. It's ideas. It's not until the council, I mean, you put ideas in there and until the planning commission presents something to the council and the council votes on it, it remains an idea. Like our current general plan has that we have commercial down on 11200, their section, but we never have zoned for that, even though it's there. It was an idea at the time. The same with some of the trail systems that are in that current general plan. But again, it's just a proposal, and I think that's what Daniel's trying to say is if this fit in to 2 stories, etc., do we think that someone might find that an interesting prospect for multi-housing? I'm not sure it would. It definitely isn't in the code now, but could it be in the future? Possibly.
okay, so I'm just trying to understand Severin's perspective.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
Severin, it sounds like you just prefer this, something like this not included.
Yes. I mean, I've been on the planning commission for years.
Yes.
This has been an issue for all the period of time I've been on the planning commission. And the city council and the residents have been virtually unanimously opposed to anything beyond 2 floors above ground level. And multifamily, maybe that'll change over time, but the height limit and the floor limit, those have been so strenuously argued against going any higher than 2 floors and 35 feet, and I just don't see why we'd even put it in there as an option.
So-
I think though that what
I
Daniel's
don't-
saying is that it wouldn't have to be 3 floors above ground. It could just be 2 floors above ground and under the 35 feet.
That's,
Well, that's
That's
just
3
an
floors.
example. That's not the exact ordinance. That's just a picture of an example. So
I
he
would
could,
just say, don't put it in there if it's not possible.
Right. So we can
so we can
change,
change
the picture. But what we're
Yeah.
asking is multifamily possible?
Well, not in the current ordinances, no.
Right. But
Right.
could
But-
it be something the city council could have as an option to consider?
Well,
As
I
an
think
overlay.
that
Another-
when we had the open house, there were those areas in the city that the residents seemed to say, yeah, we would accept multifamily in this area.
Right.
And
So
it's,
the thinking
it's
is
down like 11200 North.
not this
Right.
picture, but could we do a multifamily unit where people were
The
saying
others
that's
that we were
2
talking about.
stories and under the height limit? Is that an option for us? Not that it's currently in the ordinance, but is that an option that we could
suggest.
keep in the general or put in the general plan for the city council to have as an option with a developer?
And that's what I said, yes.
Okay, so it sounds like we're saying the same thing. But we just want to make sure that we're not
But
changing the
just
height
that
and the
three-story
floor.
one,
We just don't like the
it needs to
picture.
be out there.
Right,
and
and
that's-
that's fair.
Mhm.
I think that's a good point.
And that's true with the village commercial too. Like anything's gonna, and that 35 foot and that 2 story, that's because of fire trucks, right? You'd have to get a new fire truck if you're gonna go higher than that. Is that correct?
That's partially it, and it's just partially we just don't want it to go higher.
Yeah. Yeah. But like the fire constraint, like that is a fixed constraint, right? Like
Uh-huh. Yeah.
even if you wanted to go higher, you couldn't without purchasing new fire engines, ladder trucks. And
Mhm. Yep.
I will make sure that any image that's in the general plan reflects that, so developers and residents don't get the wrong idea and think that they can go above that height limit.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, am I also correct in assuming that this type of townhome product would be just
Out,
out entirely?
out. Yeah.
Okay.
I think, I mean, I'm speaking for me, but I don't see us with that. No.
So,
Okay.
our committee, would you like to offer any opinions on that?
When I was talking to people, I felt like they were more flexible to something like this if it offered something to the community, such as a trail system or amenities that maybe this would need to go within the general design and the vibe of the community. If it met that more so than like this image, more of like a mountain look, if it provided something that people could use. So maybe if it was laid out better and had some trail systems through it with some amenities, maybe
You're
some
talking about the
playgrounds.
PUD. Am I saying that right?
Mhm.
that
Right.
they would be more open to something like this rather than just like rows of townhomes that look like this.
So in
Right,
this
more of
image
that village
here-
look.
Exactly, the village look, but not necessarily even with the commercial, but just a village look and maybe more of a village type layout, but it's just townhomes, but it offers something.
So the townhomes on the left that
Uh-huh.
are rear loaded, so you have a front elevation that is very traditional, no garage, no carport. It seemed like residents liked the image on the left more, provided, like you said, it creates some trails and some open space, right? It's still
Yeah.
multifamily, so we want to get some
More of a
amenities.
daybreak
with it.
feel.
And
Yes,
the like green space
Green
playground.
space in the middle with a playground with maybe trails that go through it, something like
yes.
that.
So that seemed to be favorable, but just switching to this one on the right where it's garage dominant, even though this elevation is a little bit better than the one I showed you before, this is still a no, right? We want a
Yeah.
rear loaded product with architecturally, visually interesting front elevations. Is that correct?
Got a story problem there too.
So we just need to switch that image out also.
Yeah, I can, yeah.
I want to make sure Chloe's comments are being seen. Can we just review those?
You want me to read them?
That would be great.
Well, an awesome
Okay, she said-
option to present, but which one's that one?
She said, the awesome option to present aesthetics seem important. I think that was on the larger home idea with multiple people inside but keeping the aesthetics important. And they wanted upscale mountain community. So it would need to look like that. And then, that lower, on the height. And then the second one was that I think they liked the image on the left more because it was wooded and green space. And we care about aesthetics, the aesthetics of our community. So she's agreeing with what was said about the front facing view with the parks and the trails and whatnot, that brought the aesthetics plus, what Brandy said is gives an option for things in that density. That's beneficial for all, not just the HOA that's there.
So I just want to understand maybe the consensus of this discussion. Is there potential for traditional townhomes if it's a PUD style development that offers, and I guess what's the amount of density we want to put in the plan of what's the limit we're willing to do if we want to say, but you have to put in parks and trails and etc. So council, committee, gosh. Sorry.
Are we even putting it in the plan or is it just more an option for the overlay for the count decide
question.
once
Maybe
it's them?
Yeah. Usually a plan, when the developer comes to you, they present an idea and the planning commission looks at current ordinances. Usually a developer is looking at current ordinances. If it doesn't fit in the current ordinance, they might suggest an ordinance to be looked at and updated. And then they go with like a PUD, the ones that we've done before, you'll notice some lots might be 5 acres and others might be 1/3 of an acre. And then the overall density comes out as 1 acre. And so those things are looked at more specifically after the developer is bringing something to the table as a presentation.
And Kirsten, to your question, you're asking, to make sure I understand, you're asking the committee to verify that the image on the right here, the traditional townhome, is indeed a no-go, but the one on the left would be okay. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I guess in my mind, these two pictures are the same as the other one as far as density
Mhm.
goes.
As far as density goes, yeah. Yes.
So are we saying this density is something we're okay with picturing or suggesting? Or if we're not going to do the other one, I would say we're not going to do any townhomes. I'm trying to understand where everybody's falling on this. Are we okay with townhomes, or are we going to suggest that we don't want any?
A trade for
Chloe
trail.
says she thinks that density is acceptable with trade for trails and parks. And that's kind of what we talked about that night is that trade between a full acre and more density for those other type of amenities that can be put in there. And you can only give green space if it's a PUD.
So what I'm hearing is in the general plan, I should probably also have two different images of a PUD. One image that doesn't have much in terms of trails, and that can be the no image, right? Like even though there's lot flexibility and maybe some green space, it's a no-go. And then the other one can show high connectivity with trails and open space. And so the developer can see that the idea isn't to have a ton of density. While there would be some townhomes, the overall density is not going to be 12 units per acre because you're still asking for open space, a good amount of open space and trails, which might mean functionally you're really only getting maybe 6 units per acre. Where typically a townhome community like this, you're looking at 10 to 12 units per acre. So we're going to reduce the amount of units per acre because we're going to increase the amount of open space and trails. It's going to increase the price point somewhat, but it's still going to be cheaper than a traditional single family home on a large lot, and it's going to open up trails. Is that kind of the idea?
I think so.
I think
Okay.
so. I feel like this is something we should vote on for Daniel to include or not. So I motion to approve adding
Well, are we
in.
gonna
Go ahead, Carrie.
are we going to piecemeal this and vote on every section, or are we voting on it overall? I guess that's what last time we were voting just to have the strike through taken out, but I'm not sure if exactly on which items on this, because it's 8 pages of draft. So how many votes are we taking on each section or each line item or on the whole product? Because we won't get through it all in our meeting time here, but
Yeah.
just to make sure that we're not, so it doesn't look like we're approving some stuff but not approving others. Just for clarification on the document itself.
Great question. To that point, we do have to be done here in about 3 minutes today because there's somebody using this room after us. So that's a great question. Do we want to review this and take a vote, or I guess have discussion to change things and then just take a vote on it as a whole? Is that the appropriate way to move forward with it?
I would suggest that one thing that we need to do is we really ought to have an electronic copy of this because I struggle to read that on the screen here. And trying to follow everything that Daniel was telling us was just not working very well for me.
Yeah.
If we have this electronically in advance, then we can actually see it and better understand what we're really looking for.
I like that. Okay. Well,
maybe Sembrun wasn't there when Daniel sent it to us. We all got it in an email at the beginning, but maybe you didn't hear that, Severin, because we had
Right.
said that prior. So you do have it in an email.
So this is for discussion. Would it be an idea to review this on our own with our copies that were all been sent by email If you did not receive it, reach out to Daniel. And then pick this up at our next meeting to approve or have discussion and approve at our next meeting. Is that the best way to move forward?
I think so.
And if you have suggestions, Daniel, would you like us to send you our strike-throughs, our questions, etc., changes, and then you can give that to us as a document and a renewed draft prior to our next meeting with maybe some possible changes?
Yeah. So if I can speak to this real quick, the things that I brought up, those actually covered the biggest questions I had in land use. So when I went through with Wayne, most of the things we just went through and like, yep, that's right. Yep, we're gonna do this with code enforcement or whatever. And these were the biggest questions we had. So I'm glad we got to cover those topics. It doesn't seem like we covered a lot, but those were the biggest questions I had with land use. So what I'll do is I will work to create more of a full draft, send it out to you all. You can provide your comments to me individually. So give me your red lines, questions, comments, concerns. You can just respond with them. And that way I can collect everyone's collective wisdom and put that together in a draft that I can get you for the next meeting. The only other question, which I know there's not really time left, Wayne was thinking he didn't want dark skies to be in the land use element. I know there are other elements that can go in, including like natural environment. That's one of the elements. And so I was going to just put dark skies policies in the natural environment element. But before I do that, are there strong opinions in where dark sky language should go?
Just so you know, we're having a presentation tomorrow night at council meeting on dark skies. So if any of you want to come and listen to that presentation prior to you giving your opinion here, that might be really helpful, or just to watch on the Zoom meeting or the recording afterwards. Because I don't know if right now I have enough of an opinion to give until I hear what they have to say and what it means and doesn't mean. We know that people in Woodland Hills prefer to have natural lighting and not light pollution, but what does that mean and how does that relate to a potential ordinance? So I'm looking forward to tomorrow night's presentation.
Okay, yeah, Sherry Berger has been Berger has been very active in that, and she's invited me to come tomorrow night to participate with that. I know her committee's been looking at it. So yeah, that's a good point, Carrie.
Also, Danielle, what date would you like us to have our suggestions to you so that you have enough time to update the document?
I will try to provide, rather than just give you the goals, I can give you the full element for land use. Here's what I'll do. For moderate income housing and transportation, I'll just give you guys the goals. But for land use, why don't I just give you the full section? The land use is probably the most important chapter, the most important element in your whole general plan. So why don't I just provide you the full text? It's not going to be like the InDesign, really nice looking version, but I can provide that all to you later this week. And then if you want to take a handful of days, a week or whatever to review it, take your time. And
do you want it back to us by May 31st? Do you want that, our final copy to you by then?
Yeah, let's shoot for something like that. Yeah.
We won't be meeting again until June 23rd.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. You can get your comments back to me by May 31st. If there are huge issues, like, where we have very diverse opinions, then I will tell marketing to leave that little section blank. But if there are big chunks that people are in agreement with, which there probably will be, then I'll have marketing just go ahead and create that draft. And then I can provide that nice looking draft to you probably in advance of the June 23rd meeting. And then you can comment on the style and the look of the general plan too.
Great. Okay, well, we won't vote on anything further. Our next meeting is June 23rd, so note that. I'll try to send that out in an email as well. It sounds like we have a plan for at least our next meeting moving forward. I thank you for sharing the dark skies tomorrow night. I'll try to tune in for that information. So for now,
I move that we adjourn.
thank you. That's where I was headed. I second the motion. Do we have a vote?
Yeah.
Aye.
I
Chloe and thank you.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you
Right.
all. We adjourned. It's exactly 6:00. One of these days I'll get that down. No, he intended to, but didn't.